Welcome, everyone. This is the meeting. The Tennessee Higher Education Commission is called to order. Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning. We will first call the roll. For those of you joining virtually, just a reminder to please state whether someone else is in the room with you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Present?
Commissioner Allman,
Present.
Commissioner Dieter,
Present.
Commissioner Matlock, Commissioner Perry,
Here.
Commissioner Rader,
Present, no one's in the room.
Commissioner Ragsdale, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Stafford, Commissioner Wood,
Present.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard,
Here, and no one's with me.
Comptroller Mumpower, Commissioner Morrison. Chairwoman, you have 13 voting members present and 14 members present.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Our first item is the adoption of the agenda for today's meeting. With no questions or objections, I'll entertain a motion in a second to adopt the agenda. Any further discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman,
Aye.
Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock. Aye. Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Rader,
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower. Chairwoman, you have 13 ayes.
Wonderful. Motion carries. The next item is public comment. Dr. Gentile, do we have any requests?
Chairman Scarlett, we have no request for public comment.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the meeting minutes from May 15th and July 22nd. I hope you've all had a chance to read that. I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve those minutes.
So moved. Second.
Madam Secretary. Aye. The green flashing. I don't know what that means.
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman,
Aye.
Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock.
Aye.
Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Rader,
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood, Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower. Chairwoman, you have 13 ayes.
Wonderful. Motion carries. Thank you. I'd like to welcome, first of all, Julia Dieter to our commission. She's our new student rep. She is going to University of Tennessee, Knoxville. You're from Hamilton County, Lakeside, is that right? Yeah. She's a public affairs major with a focus in American civics minor and national security concentration. Also serves as a public service intern for the city of Knoxville. I don't know whether you knew that or not. And you just finished up as Student Government Association as on-campus senator. So welcome to the commission. Yesterday, just a quick recap of yesterday, we had a really great conversation led by Dr. Brian Prescott from NEMCHEMS. What does NEMCHEMS stand for again? National?
On the spot.
Yes.
National Center of Higher Education Management Services. I'm pretty sure that's 80% correct.
He led a really robust conversation. I think everyone felt it was quite valuable listening to information and data about what he has seen and also what the team at THEC did some research in regards to other states and their program approval process. It was a big learning experience, I think, and we had a bit of a robust discussion about how we can help drive more efficiency and effectiveness from THEC's program approvals. Specifically, what is it that we would like to approve versus maybe things that we might want to delegate? I think we all had some aha moments and certainly ripe for future conversation. The conversation also continued in talking about tuition. We have the ability to have new tuition setting authority, discuss some of the potential criteria of what that might be or not be. But I thought it was a really good conversation. Hope that we'll be able to have further deeper dive conversations in the future, and that those of you that were not able to join us yesterday, hopefully next time you'll be able to join. Something recently that was announced, which I really think shows a lot of progress in Tennessee, was the direct admissions pilot. This fall, about 41,000 students will receive a automatic admission letter with no application required to move on to school. Additionally, in those letters, there'll be personalized financial aid estimates, which really takes a really big burden off a lot of families to think about what's next for going into school for next fall. So I think it's a really, really big step. It's certainly been lauded not only in Tennessee, but also at a national level too. So congratulations to THEC and a much broader team that put that together. So thank you all for working on that. I think it's a game changer, beginning game changer. As we think about our agenda today, we're going to talk some about the master plan. And as we think about also our work, being not just sitting at this table, but at a broader level, ultimately, I think some of our goals are to be able to help students access and complete some sort of post-secondary so they can step into workforce, they can step into the jobs of today and tomorrow. Some might say that today might not be the right time to move forward with a new master plan because we have a new governor coming in next year, right? And I look at the data and I say, look at this and say, we have 63% of our jobs require some sort of post-secondary credential, yet less than 50% of Tennesseans have a post-secondary credential. There's a gap there. And I would encourage us to continue to move forward with a very strong, measurable outcomes-based plan for the state. We may choose to not put together a nice marketing slogan like the Drive to 55, which you know I love, and I think many of us in here love that concept of Drive to 55, and it's easy for us to wrap our head around. We may want to choose to wait until the next governor is in role and have a further conversation with that governor tied to a measurable plan, and then have further conversations about how we might want to move forward with a slogan to help rally us around. I would highly recommend that we do not stop the master planning process. I think it's really important, not just for those inside of THEC, but also for the institutions across the state, also for all of Tennessee. I think it's really important for us to make sure that we have strong outcomes, strong goals, strong strategies, and strong ways to measure what we're trying to accomplish as a state. There's food for thought as we move into that conversation later today. I think that we can refine the branding side of things later. Looking forward, I think we have a lot of great things happening. And I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Gentile to talk us through some of the things that are going on right now. Yes. Sorry.
All righty. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Commissioner Dieter, welcome. Glad you're here. She's been abroad for the last month or so and was just able to get orientated and sign the official document, making her the commissioner a couple days ago, but we've been very excited. I want to thank President Boyd. He's here. Thank you. Have UT representation on the board for this year. Welcome. I want to welcome Chancellor Melinda Arnold from UT Southern. She's here. This is her first commission meeting. No fireworks. No, first commission meeting. I'm sure it'll be fun commission meeting. She's going to have UT Southern Master Plan as agenda item number 1, coming to us from Texas. I had a meeting with her a couple of weeks ago. It was a great intro. Looking forward to developing a relationship going forward. President Boyd, welcome to you as well. Thank you for being here today. We have virtually President Oldham from Tennessee Tech, President Hargrave. I want to give a special shout out to Dr. Mitch Cordova, the new provost from Austin Peay State University. Just joined us from Florida Gulf Coast, down in Florida, obviously. I have a point of personal privilege, and I know President Licari will be here in a little while, but on Tuesday was my oldest, my nine-year-old's first day of 4th grade. And at Nashville Classical Academy, every classroom has a theme, a college theme representing where the teacher came from. And Austin will be in Austin Peay State University this year. So excited about that. Let's go. But also, more importantly, This is the teacher's first year, Miss Johnson, and she came out of the Grow Your Own program at Austin P, which is an apprenticeship program for teachers, which is a national leading, Nathan is a fan of it as well, national leading apprenticeship program to address the teacher shortage. So I hope it's going to be a good year. I know it's going to be a good year. Look forward to reporting back on that. Want to recognize Amanda Clefane, our Chief Strategy Officer. I know I already shared this with the body here, but next week we'll be up in Minneapolis. She's going to receive the David L. Wright Memorial Award. David Wright, for those of you who are around the table who might remember, he used to be the Deputy Executive Director. He put the last master plan in place. And he used to work for SHIO. He used to work for the Florida Board of Governors. He passed away about 8 years ago. And he had an amazing impact on higher education policy across this country. The SHIO organization, which comprises all of our SHIO agencies from across the country, have had an award in his honor recognizing a SHIO agency employee who just goes above and beyond and is really the MVP of the nation in that year. And her team nominated her for this award, and I'm just excited, ecstatic, got a little bit emotional when I learned about it, that she's receiving the David L. Wright Memorial Award. Let's give her a hand. And she loves attention. She's loving this moment right now. I know she is. One more update before I get into the presentation I want to talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and its impact on higher education. There's a lot of things moving in there that is going to have a great impact. Some of it came up in conversation yesterday. Commissioner Smith represented it. But I want to go back to our last commission meeting in May and a topic of conversation in November to update you on where we fell with lottery revenues this year. We told you at different quarters that we were behind on lottery revenues, and we ended this year in a $3 million surplus on lottery revenue over expenditure. But that's not all lottery. That's about $80 million of it is sports wagering. So absent sports wagering, we would have been down roughly $77 million. And of course, going forward, sports wagering is not automatically going to go towards higher education unless there is a deficit. So we're still very much in the same situation that I talked with you guys back in May. Again, in that surplus this year and next fiscal years, if all things hold the same, we're looking at deficit territory when it comes to the lottery. I have nothing further to report on that right now, just that we'll be watching that closely and being conservative in how we think about lottery changes as well. Looking at the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the higher education impacts. I'm going to go over in detail those last 4 bullet points, but there were some far-reaching changes that I think you'll see that it makes sense that they went that direction, or makes sense, but there might be some things down the road that's going to change behavior at our institutions. But first of all, that first bullet point that I'll go not into much more detail on is about how the FAFSA calculates assets. It's going to shield farm-owned businesses from the asset calculation, also fisheries as well. That's in a grand scheme, a big change for those families, relatively minor when it comes to the FAFSA changes. There are changes to the loan repayment plans, Pell, student loan limits, and new accountability measures that's going to affect all of higher education. Looking at the loan repayment plans, there have been a number. In fact, as someone who used to work in financial aid, I never quite grasped all the new repayment plans or the old repayment plans when it came to loans. So part of this bill simplifies those loan repayment plans for current borrowers and future borrowers. They're going to be put onto a standard repayment plan or an income-driven repayment plan. I'd say the biggest difference here from the most popular plan right now that's called SAVE, which is being wound down, is that pretty much everyone's going to be making payments towards their loans. Right now, under SAVE, if you're at 225% of the federal poverty level, you're not making payments toward your loans, and interest is not accruing. Going forward, 15% of discretionary income for those who, of your AGI, there's no limit on that, of your AGI for borrowers from pre-2014 will pay 15%, and after 25 years, that will be forgiven. For those who started getting loans after 2014, 10% of discretionary income and forgiveness after 20 years. If the minimum payment is going to be $10 people are putting towards their bills. So this is ensuring that principals are drawn down over time. Pell Grants. There was a lot of movements here, and I'll tell you the difference between the two chambers. What first came out of the House looks very different from what was finalized in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. First of all, Pell was facing a shortage, and the proposal was to reduce the maximum Pell Grants. That did not happen. Instead, what ended in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act is that there was an infusion of $10.5 billion to help close that $97 billion shortfall. There was also a recommended change out of the House, not recommended. What got out of the House was that right now you get full Pell Grants if you are full-time at 12 credit hours. They were going to change that to 15 credit hours, more specifically 30 credit hours over an academic year, so including summer. So a student would have to get 30 credit hours over that summer. We looked at the math, and we identified that about 40,000 students in Tennessee would be affected by that change. It is a change with the mindset of helping students get through faster. Locally, the bigger concern we had was, is it feasible to shift students over to that change? Can they handle it? And what would that do for Tennessee Promise and our other scholarships that define full-time at 12 credit hours? That provision did not end up in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. The biggest change, and this will be happening over the next year, is that there are now what's called Workforce Pell Grants to be funded. Workforce Pell for short-term certificates, for shorter than a semester, shorter than what students can get Pell Grants for right now. These are going to be open for providers that are accredited to distribute to students. And there's a partnership here between the federal and the state. The federal is going to pick the programs that are eligible, the providers that are eligible for these programs, ensuring that students are able to get higher incomes when they take those certificate programs. The state is going to identify exactly what programs those are going to. This buttresses well with the quality non-credential work we've been doing over the last few years, and there's a statute in place that defines what quality looks like. There's going to be a lot of rule setting here. It's early. We can't talk more about this in great detail because there's a lot unknown with this. Loan, I'd say the next two slides are the ones that are likely to most drive student and institutional behavior. Loan limits, Grad PLUS loans specifically. Grad PLUS loans currently in place before this bill was passed allow students to take up the total cost of attendance and loans for their graduate program. That's going away. And instead in place is going to be the standard graduate loan that's not plus, that will be capped at, for master's programs, $20,500 every year, with a lifetime max of $100,000. For professional programs, capped at $50,000 annually, for a lifetime cap at $200,000. For point of reference, in-state tuition and fees for graduate students at most of our schools averages about $16,000, $17,000. Total cost of attendance would add about $20,000 on top of that for housing, room, textbooks, other things. So before, if you're thinking $17,000 for in-state income tuition for graduate school, plus $20,000, that's $37,000. That's what students would have gotten in the past. Now they're getting $20,500. Out-of-state graduate students, a lot of students that we attract here to Tennessee, that tuition for most institutions is well above $20,500. This is going to be a pressure point for our institutions as they think about what programs they offer and who's willing to take that up given what their limit on the loans would be. We do believe that private loan will pop up more so. Some states that give out loans are considering giving out loans for graduate loans going forward. The biggest concern that's been voiced out there is professional programs, MD programs specifically, those who want to go on to be dentists or veterinarians, doctors. Is that $200,000 lifeline going to be enough for them to even think about going into those programs when there are shortages in those fields. So it's early days. Don't know how this is going to affect behavior, but it's going to affect behavior of students, institutions, and other policies that might try to fill the gaps. Parent Plus Loan. Parent Plus Loan is very much like Graduate Plus Loan in that parents can take out the full cost of attendance for an education if they are passing a credit check. When I was a financial aid counselor, that loan scared me the most because I was working at a private undergraduate institution where students' parents could take upwards of $60,000 a year in a loan if they had a reasonable credit check. Multiply that by 4 times 5, we're talking about a lot of money put on the backs of those parents. Back in the Obama administration, there was work to curtail that plus loan. After a noticeable dip in HBCU enrollment, they backtracked on those changes, leaving these in place for access purposes. However, going forward right now, the Parent Plus loans are going to be capped at $20,000 annually, $65,000 lifetime per student. Accountability measures. This is really where the rubber hits the road. There have been lots of talk over the years under the Bush administration, Obama administration, Trump, Biden, about accountability measures specifically for proprietary institutions. What's in place now with this bill is accountability measures for all institutions. Essentially, looking at undergraduate programs, think majors, bachelor degrees, graduates coming out, if they are, the majority of those graduates are earning less than the median high school graduate in that same state, that program will be ineligible for federal loans. Similar with graduate students, graduate programs. If completers of graduate programs earn less than a bachelor's degree, a majority of them earn less than the bachelor's degree recipients in that same field, in the same state, they also will be ineligible for federal loans going forward. We right now do not have our arms wrapped around what this means, primarily because rules have not been developed. There's been talk about what this might mean for social work or education programs, how the rule setting defines what programs are or are not included. I don't know how much leeway is in statute for it, but we have joined our data with the US Census PSEO. We've talked about that here before. In about a few months, we'll be able to see what students are earning by program. We can already do that. I know TBR does this well with their programs through the state labor data, but we'll be looking even closer at this given this bill. As someone who's worked in higher education now for 19 years, almost 20 years, there are a lot of instincts in this bill change that make sense. We want students to be able to graduate and have a wage that is reflective of having gotten an academic program and putting them in a better spot than they would have been if they did not go. Parent Plus loans, as I said, as a financial aid counselor, that long gave me heartburn. That's parents who could have very low income could take upwards of $300,000 in debt. So the instincts in those components here definitely make sense. We're just looking to see how this is going to affect higher education and behavior going forward. Madam Chair, that's my presentation. I'm happy to entertain any questions, concerns.
Open it up for questions. Please.
The loan caps that were identified, are those numbers fixed or do they adjust for inflation?
You know, that's a question I don't have an answer to. I believe that if it's in statute, that's fixed. But in fact, I know if it's in statute, it's fixed. So I'm not sure if it's going to be adjusted for inflation or not. I'll look into that. That's a question I don't have an answer to. I want to thank, by the way, Tom Harnish. He's the source on this. He's our government relations liaison through the SHIO organization. He's got his ear on the ground. I'm going to text him after this meeting and get that answer because he knows well about that. He's been really helpful to us in helping us understand these changes.
Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Gentile.
Thank you.
Okay, our first action item is the consent agenda. There's one item with two parts on the consent agenda, oh my gosh. Consent agenda. We will vote on them as a set. If there are no questions or objections, I look for a motion and a second, please. Madam Secretary.
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman,
Aye.
Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock, Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Rader,
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Stafford, Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Secretary Hargit, Treasurer Lillard,
Aye. Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower. Chairwoman, you have 13 ayes.
Great, motion carries. I'd like to, Dr. Gentile has something to talk about.
You know, you see someone about a dozen times over a period of 3 days, and then you forget to introduce him as well. I want to take a moment here and recognize newly appointed permanent President Dwayne Tucker of Tennessee State University. President Tucker, hello. I am so sorry, sir. Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to our regular calendar. The University of Tennessee Southern Campus Master Plan is our next agenda item. Dr. Gentile, will you please introduce our speaker, please?
I'd like to recognize Chancellor Melinda Arnold. I already gave her a shout out before. She's joining us from Texas, and you know, Texas, where she comes from, they have a coordinating body that's very similar to this one, and how they interact in policies, just much larger. And so we were able to have a familiar ground when she came in. But I just want to say that, you know, since Martin Methodist became UT Southern, I've been looking with eager anticipation on where that institution is going. It's been a great crown and the jewel of our higher education, and just looking forward to being partners with you going forward, Chancellor Arnold.
Thank you very much. And I'm proud to be in the volunteer state and have left the Lone Star State. So thanks for the kind welcome. Commissioners, Executive Director Gentile, as the new Chancellor of the University of Tennessee Southern, it's my great honor and privilege to be with you this morning to present UT Southern's Campus Master Plan. While the planning work was completed prior to my arrival, I look forward with great excitement to working with the campus and community to bringing this plan to life. This master plan was developed over an 18-month period, inclusive of feedback from city, county, and campus constituents. To ensure continuity, the UT Southern Master Plan was built on 3 pillars as outlined in our strategic plan. Those include enhancing academic excellence and promoting innovation, creating transformational student experiences and fostering student success, and establishing great connectedness and facilitating campus and community engagement. Without question, the UT Southern Master Plan is ambitious, but it does and will always place the students at the forefront of all that we do. The plan is thoughtful in design, enabling us to grow our physical footprint in a way that is considerate and respectful of the historic area within which we live and work, while providing state-of-the-art educational and co-curricular opportunities for students. The plan is intentional in its efforts to integrate the city of Pulaski and Giles County into the student experience, providing clear connections between UT Southern's main campus, the town of Pulaski, and our East Campus, which houses our athletic fields, through street signage and trails that encourage campus and city synergy. Finally, the plan is future forward as it enables us to expand and grow our academic programs and physical plant in a measured way, increasing enrollment by providing new academic programs and learning spaces, while simultaneously remaining committed to improving the persistence, retention, and graduation of the students we serve through unique living and learning communities and new and expanded gathering spaces that promote collaborative learning and exploration. As you know, we are a campus located in an underserved area of Tennessee that plays a pivotal role in providing a personalized student educational experience. This master plan is critical to enabling us to fulfill this important mission for years to come. With that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Samuel Weibel, Associate Principal with Hastings Architecture, who will provide a more in-depth review of UT Southern's master plan. Thank you.
Morning. Thanks, Chancellor Arnold. I'm Sam Weibel with Hastings Architecture, and glad to be here and have the privilege of speaking to you this morning about the inaugural UT Southern Master Plan. It's been a great collaboration with the UT Southern faculty, the staff, former Chancellor Martin, and looking forward to Chancellor Arnold's leadership in implementing the plan. Also been a great partnership with UT system and seeing President Boyd's vision for transforming this school as it becomes UT Southern. This summer marks 4 years since the UT system acquired Martin Methodist and it became UT Southern. And this plan honors that 150-year history of the institution while preparing for its future. It seeks to preserve the charm of the campus and its historic identity while looking forward, strengthening the key elements of growth. It preserves iconic features of the institution and respects the foundational academic programs. And I think as Chancellor Arnold said, I think in case throughout the process, it's always been reiterated that this is student focused. All decisions have been made for the benefit of the students, and every decision for their academic success. As she also mentioned, it's based on the strategic plan. The 3 pillars of strategic plan are academic excellence and innovation, transformational student experience, and campus and community engagement. And those feed into the curricular strengths of the school, and those in turn feed into the master plan elements. UT Southern is well situated between the growing cities of Nashville and Huntsville. During the process of the master plan, 600 acres was donated to the school. That's in Elkton, Tennessee, main campus in Pulaski. But just wanted to note that it's addressed in a narrative form in the master plan, but doesn't have any planning per se. Main campus is directly adjacent to downtown Pulaski, and the relationship that can be fostered between those two and create a dynamic, engaging place to be for both residents of Pulaski and students on campus is a great opportunity. East Campus is just 2 miles away, and that houses most of the athletic fields. And there's a shared facility showing the connectedness between community and campus at Magazine Road Park, which is a tennis facility built about a year ago. The plan is based on enrollment projections. This graph shows the baseline number is a 5% projection, and the top graph showing an aspirational projection at 6.5%. And as of this fall, the enrollment is expected to surpass that aspirational target. So with a campus capacity and support of about 1,300 students, this master plan is timely to consider. This is the current existing plans of the campus, color-coded. Academic is in red, orange has athletic, yellow is housing, purple is student life, and blue is admissions and office spaces. As you can see, those academic areas are concentrated around the center campus, what's called the historic green, and this plan looks to try to integrate those more fully throughout the campus. This is the East Campus, has a few structures on it, namely a field house, indicated number 1, at the softball and baseball fields. There are also some bleachers and a maintenance building and concessions at soccer, but we'll talk about how we propose to develop this. A few images of campus. Most of these are centered around that green, the historic green. They show the gazebo, which are the namesake 3 pillars, strategic plan, and then some of the other structures that front, mostly the green here. As we started the planning, we looked at starting with quads. So these are the 3 quads we focused on and their connectedness. So the campus green, student life, and hillside quad. The historic campus green, noted throughout the process as the heart of campus, is something the master plan should preserve at all costs. In fact, it tries to emphasize the green. The first way to do that was to propose closing West Madison Street, which we've talked with the city about during the process and think that is viable and feasible, which will allow a safer, pedestrianized part of campus, more campus identity, and create secures an easier zone to secure. Furthermore, strengthening that the heart of the campus is focusing on a campus axis that can connect what is now the green to the upper campus. The gazebo sits actually just off axis and needs to be restored. So this plan proposes to restore it and place it on axis, further kind of making that stronger on campus. One of the initial projects that we think should be considered is a nursing and science building that will connect Andrews Science and Martin Hall. That's indicated here as B. That's an empty space now on campus, so facilitating growth. It's a great way to phase work. It doesn't displace any students. Those buildings don't have elevators, and the restrooms in them are not up to code currently. And so this building would allow several things. One, great new labs and research space, elevators to connect floors and be connected to both. So allowing both would be able to use the elevator, and modern accessible restrooms, and the potential of a mechanical system that could then be modernized to feed both Martin and Andrews. Maybe one of the most important symbolic parts of that building campaign would be there's a portal that exists there that has 2 levels in it. We propose to open that up and make a transparent pre-function. It's about where B is shown on the drawing. Pre-function space that allows visibility through campus, and you could pass through that glass space. There's the last part of Martin is a cinema, which is used by the community. That's the bar at the north. That's also the largest meeting space on campus at 150. This creates a pre-function for that, but also a way for students to pass directly through and kind of re-emphasize that campus access. Student life quad is really the border, the eastern border of the green, but the current student union seen outlined in orange here would be expanded. That has the current kitchen, which would be expanded to have a larger dining facility, which would have glass and views of the green. We could incorporate flexible meeting space and student life activities in that. So, and the configuration of it would create outdoor gathering space against the already existing residence hall that could be renovated and expanded. And this whole community, living, learning community, would be able to have recreation space and student gathering. And the darker orange is the potential for expanding it further as the years go by. There's also a parking area that's on the other side of Jefferson. Generally speaking, we looked at trying to contain the campus by Flower Street to the southwest and Jefferson to the northeast, to make the campus precinct very defined and allow edges and signage, et cetera, to reinforce where students would be and create a safest zone possible. There is parking to the east here, but we would propose a traffic calming to make sure that was a safe crossing for students. But hopefully there's enough activity on campus that students are not going to their cars often. Generally, this master plan pushes cars to the outer edges of campus. Finally, the hillside quad, there is a major grade change between the heart of campus at the historic green and the upper campus at Curry Athletic, which is the white building at the top of the screen, of about 40 feet. And today, students don't make that crossing easily. That's something you'd likely do in a car. There's parking in the center of campus. As we move that out, we propose a second road closure shown here at E, which is the closing of North 5th, to again allow a safer pedestrianized zone that connects lower and upper campus. Where current parking exists today at D, we propose to move that again to the edge and create another gathering space, maybe more of hardscape that allows events. You could have food trucks there, you could have concerts there. The yellow line indicates a historic stone wall that separates that bottom of the hill. Originally, I think a school was at the top of the hill. It's been replaced by Curry Athletics several decades ago, but that wall still exists and is kind of a beautiful thing. This plan proposes to have a symbolic break in there to again reemphasize that campus access. At that break, we propose an amphitheater, an informal style amphitheater that allows students to have a recreation area, but also potentially have concerts and any other event, but allows them to traverse the hillside in a park-like setting. The part of the wall that's broken, we propose to move up to the top of the hill and become a student gathering spot. We called it the Perch, And since UT Southern are the Firehawks, seemed like a good name, and moving the cars away from there, that's a great place, pregame or postgame celebrations, and a great place for students to go and be able to look over the town, the campus, the town, and then onto the hills, which is a beautiful part of Tennessee. The primary buildings in this phase, beyond the landscape changes and the road closure, we have a hybrid academic and residential building shown as C and B. And that is another way for students to traverse the hillside. It's basically a podium base with an active lower level with flexible classroom space, potential of a food service like cafe for students to get engaged, and elevators and stairs to be able to come through, pass through the building, move up, and then be at the top of the hill. Above that, we'd have residential halls. And the two that exist, the apartment styles that are identical, white at the top, would then have another component to help form a residential area at the top of the hill. The last piece is an expansion to the Curry Athletic Center, which is overstressed by about 40% of the student body are athletes. And this building also encourages the community to come in and use space. And that creates some tension with the amount of use. So a heavily used building puts some students there for training and sports related things is early in the morning at 6 and late in the evening. So having another duplicate facility that could host competitive events and take the pressure off that to allow practice and performance would be great to do. And again, there's nothing in that space now. So phasing of this would allow you to build a new gym and then come back and renovate the old and make it a more efficient space. We're also showing that as having a connector, which again is on the series of spaces that keep a central axis. So by consolidating a lobby for both the new and the old, another way to save space and to allow a beacon-like building at the top of the hill as well. At East Campus, we propose several new structures. Like main campus, it has a high and a low. Interestingly, the field house, which today has restrooms that are both for spectators and for athletes of both UT Southern and an opponent. So trying to figure out a way to get those out of the same room so you have a post-game meeting or pre-game meeting that isn't competing with spectators coming in and out. We propose expanding the field house and creating a threshold for spectators to come through, be out of the elements with ticketing and storage. That's on axis with a new concessions, referee, scorers, restroom pavilion. And then that's flanked by bleachers that would be in the natural hillside at both softball and baseball. And then above that is a flexible classroom space that would house offices, coaching offices as well. And then the parking that corresponds would allow referees and coaches to park separate from spectators. At soccer, we propose a second field house that's more performance-based and a runner's pavilion that's along the trail. Both these, I think, given the sports compete for time and space, they both feel necessary, and this would have a slightly different purpose than the main field house. So be able to offer both for athletes. This last image is a composite of the full master plan at main campus to see kind of all the elements together. And that's the last image, so happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Weibel. Any questions?
Madam Chair.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Weibel. Would either you or Chancellor Arnold address this? The enrollment projections seem to be pretty ambitious, and in the midst of sort of the beginning of the enrollment cliff where we're expecting to see a reduction in enrollment nationwide, and given the location of Southern, what were those projections based on? What's the draw, and how much of the enrollment is expected to be in-state versus out of state?
Well, that's probably a better question for Chancellor Arnold. I will say that, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think that we have seen it. I believe you're able to take students from North Alabama, right? So
Yes.
That's why we're showing Huntsville, and actually a lot of the professors live and commute, so
That's
that was
true.
considered.
I would say that you're right in the sense that enrollment projections are ambitious, but we are exceeding them already at every turn. We are focusing our enrollment efforts certainly on the state of Tennessee because that's who we are committed to serving. Where we sit, as you well know, is again in an underserved area of the state that hasn't had a lot of higher education attention paid to it. And so the students that we seek come from, if you will, that band between Memphis and Chattanooga, certainly on the horizontal axis and on the vertical axis from Nashville to Huntsville. But our enrollment projections are in line with what we are seeing with our enrollment growth. We have already exceeded the ambitious enrollment growth for 25 and are well on our way to beating the 26 goal, and it's still 25.
Okay, sorry, Chancellor, I have a follow-up question for you. Do you put a cap on number of out-of-state students that you would enroll? So first of all, back up. Congratulations on exceeding projected enrollment because we really want to continue to see that. But is there a cap? Do you say a maximum of X% of students who come from out of state?
No, ma'am, we haven't put a cap, but here's what I'll say. The majority of our students are from Tennessee. So we've not really been in a position where we've had to do that. Certainly, we've lost a lot of Tennesseans to our friends to the south, particularly in Alabama and Arkansas. So we'd like to get some of those folks back.
Madam Chair, for some additional context, and 4 years ago, the proposal is going forward for Martin Methodist to be acquired by UT System in the state. We did analysis and did find that in that particular region of the state, unlike any other region in the state, in that particular region of the state, the students who were going to universities were going to Northern Alabama. A public university in state that was not hitting the top 5, I believe. And so we recognized then that there was a need in that area of the state for a public university. Second, Commissioner, to your point, there is going to be a contraction of high school seniors going to college, or high school seniors in general, over the next 15 years. Tennessee is projected to buck that trend. And we are the #1 state for that projected growth in the country, I think up 16% over the next 15 years. That said, the pressure is going to come from other states. Other states who have declining seniors in high school, they'll be pulling from other states. So that's more the pressure point for Tennessee, but we should have a growing amount of Tennessee seniors in the future.
Are you part of the direct admissions pilot?
Yes, we are.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. What is your average, you may or may not know this, what is your average cost of attendance? Tuition, mandatory fees, non-mandatory fees, all in?
It's about $11,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for, yes, please.
First of all, I think you did a great job developing the plan. I like the way you defined the boundaries of the campus. I think that's exceptional. I just wanted to say a word about UT Southern in general. I think when this ambitious plan came about a couple of years ago, folks wondered, is this really going to work? And I think it has. It's served a very underserved area. So President Boyd, thanks to you. And I think this is a good master plan. And I also see Austin Oaks here with UT System, great plan. And I'm glad it's in place. I think it's going to lead to a bright future. Chancellor Arnold, welcome. We're glad you're in Tennessee, the real UT. And so with that being said, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion. We approve the master plan for UT Southern.
Anyone have a second? Nathan, you have a question?
If I may.
Yes, please,
Before we go
absolutely.
to a vote. Madam Chair, I wanted to say, first of all, I'd like to ask you, how much is your unique place in the state? In other words, your ability to offer the small university experience at state school rates in that unique environment. How much does that play into UT Southern's expected growth? Because I recognize that, I mean, there are a couple of places to do that. You can go to the Lambeth campus, you can do your program there at UT Southern. And I think it's unique, and it's certainly something I talk about a lot with K-12 folks, to say, hey, you know, they've stepped in there and filled a void. But I'd like to hear how much that plays into it. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Absolutely. That's what we think absolutely distinguishes ourselves from other institutions inside and certainly outside of Tennessee. I like to say that there's a University of Tennessee for everybody. And if you want the large school experience, you can have that. But if you want the personalized experience on a campus that shows and is prepared to demonstrate that connectedness through mentorship and just engagement, then UT Southern is your place to be. So that's who we are, the foundation of who we are, and maybe more importantly, who we want and will always be.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any other questions? Madam Secretary?
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman,
Aye.
Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock,
Aye.
Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Rader,
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Secretary Hargit, Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower. Chairwoman, you have 13 ayes.
Motion carries. Congratulations. So next item on the agenda is the Strategic Higher Education Master Plan. Ms. Latham, our new MVP of SHIOs.
Thank you.
Please welcome.
Yes. And I'm actually going to let Stephen kick us off.
Right, thank you, Amanda. And real quick, I see now Chancellor Tidings in the audience as well from Tennessee Board of Regents. Good to see you. Thank you for attending today. We have been working over the last 8 months on just essentially doing a mega listening tour and convening different groups, varying groups, including this body, and surveying this body and engaging with this body on what are the needs of higher education. To Chairwoman Scarlett's point, there have been a couple of conversations that have popped up from the review committee and from other parties wondering if now is the right time to do a master plan, given that we have a governor's transition in a year and a half. I see that as a very valid point. However, I also see this as an opportunity to work to get our house in order as a higher education system as a new governor comes in play. And then we working closely with that governor to package what that goal could be going forward. Over the last few months, having engaged the different groups, we had topical work groups, we had our all-staff meeting, we had focus groups with various constituents to come to what is in front of you today, which is an outline of what that program could look like. Going forward, we are convening the review committee, statutory review committee on the 18th. In a prior conversation I had with Secretary Hargit, I want to be better about letting you guys know about meetings like that. And so after this meeting, I'll send out an email to you for a calendar hold. It is not required viewing by your part, but it is a public meeting. And in that review committee, this is a statutory committee. It includes all 6 LGI presidents, UT president, TBR chancellor. It includes the chairs of the education and finance committees. It includes the comptroller, it includes commissioner of FNA, Jim Bryson, and I might be missing legislative budget office is also represented in that group. And they're not ones to approve the final master plan. They inform the master plan. This body here approves that final master plan. Going forward, we are convening all trustees and regents in the state in the middle of October. You guys are invited to that program. It's going to be an exciting program. And we're going to touch base with the trustees and the regents just to capture their thoughts here as well, and then bring to this body in November the final master plan. We have on your calendars a hold for a virtual meeting in third week of September to check in with the master plan with you. We'll touch base with you after this meeting if that's something that you would like to continue forward with. At the time, we are planning to have the master plan approved at that meeting. We feel like we need more time and engagement with the trustees and regions before we actually have the final version in front of you. Slide, please. What you're going to see after this slide is our key takeaways, the key elements that we've heard from all about where our higher education enterprise needs to go. But at the forefront of the conversation has been really a threefold mantra. One is The state needs to do a better job of capturing the value of higher education. And I've talked about this beyond degree attainment, but also talking about research development, workforce development, recognizing the powers that are at our universities, community colleges, TCATs, public and private. Second, the state needs to do a better job of improving the value of higher education. In front of you here, you see the Tennessee lifetime earnings over high school graduates, some college no degree, associate's degree, bachelor's degree. Oftentimes, the market value of higher education is thrown into question, but we know that students who go on and complete a credential are less likely to lose their jobs during a recession, the recession proofing of the economy that Commissioner Smith has talked about in the past. We know they're more likely to earn higher premiums on their degrees. Even if they don't get a credential, they're more likely to have a higher wage premium. However, there are a lot of students who have some college no degree, never getting that credential. When I talk about improving the value of higher education, I'm really looking at that bar right there. How can we ensure that more students are getting that credential in an efficient and effective timeline so that they can move from that bar of 258,000 up to 417 or 1.4 million? As Chairwoman Scarlett mentioned earlier, it's been projected by 2031 that 63% of Tennessee jobs will require post-secondary training. Right now, we're, as of 2023 data, just a hair under 50%, and we'll have more data coming in over time. So like I said, look forward to the rest of this conversation. Secretary Hargan, I mentioned while you were out about the upcoming review committee in a week and a half, and I'll be sending that out to you all for your calendar so you guys can participate in that conversation as you see fit to it. Amanda Clefane.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction. So I really want to kind of emphasize something that Stephen was just saying, which is really that this plan is centering around value and rebuilding trust, both with the state writ large, but also Tennesseans. As we're seeing and hearing from our various conversations, we know, and a lot of the folks in this room recognize the value that comes with higher education, but we also need to be able to continue to demonstrate that and to grow on that for Tennesseans. And so what you're going to see over these next couple of slides and in your materials is sort of our operational plan, what we're thinking in order to help us drive towards this more valuable higher education system. I'm going to do some talking and pausing because I'm going to want input and feedback at various steps of this process. And so really where I'd like to start is on our guiding principles. These are really designed to be sort of values and beliefs that are going to influence decisions and actions in this plan. We talked about this at the beginning of this process. The goal is that this is a living, breathing document, and it should and needs to evolve and change as we both make progress on these strategies and objectives, but also as things demand. We're in a constantly changing environment, and we need to be prepared to have our feet on the ground and one step forward in order to meet those needs. So I'm not going to read everything that's on this slide, but we've identified 6 guiding principles that we think are really important as we look forward, but I'd love to hear from you all your feedback. That first is being ambitious, really ensuring as Tennessee remains kind of at the forefront of innovation and development. Collaborative, something we heard throughout our conversations is a real need. We have a robust higher education system in the state. We have great influence for our state agencies through our K-12 and local communities. We really need to be working together in order to be successful. We need to be consistent. That means maintaining our commitments to students, to our institutions, to the state as it relates to meeting those needs. I mentioned innovative, really thinking through and coming to every idea, not necessarily with what we've always done, but being forward thinking. Student-centered. This one is getting a lot of positive points, I'll say, in our conversations thus far, but really ensuring that every decision we're making is with the student in mind. How are we going to make this process easier for them to not only get to that credential, but to that job that's important for them and for the state? And then finally, understandable. This one has gotten a bit of feedback, is a little confusing as currently written, so want to preface with that point, but to say really that we make this process quite complex. It's difficult to navigate for students and for families, and sometimes even our higher education professionals, where there's high turnover or otherwise. We make this process more difficult than it needs to be. And so what we should strive to be is more understandable or simplify some of those pieces. So I want to pause here with that description to see what you all think of these guiding principles. If there's something missing that you think we need to be reevaluating, I'll open the floor for that discussion.
Anyone have any questions for Ms.
Amanda, thank you. I think this is a very good plan laid out. We've heard the term culture eats strategy for breakfast. So having this on paper is great. I guess the question I have, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday in terms of operational mission. How do we make sure that we can operationalize this great plan? So I think that's the key. Is it's great to have it on paper, but we've got constituents all the way across the state. And how do we make sure that we're really operationalizing this and implementing it in a way that it's living and breathing cultural?
It's a great point, and one I do intend to get to a little bit later in the slides, but want to talk a little bit about, which is that we really need to have that strong communication strategy. While we've been really intentional about our engagement of the community, we need to, once this plan is ratified by this body, take it out on the road. We need to familiarize our higher education community with it. It needs to become also an embedded part of our practice. And I think something that we have a few different opportunities and responsibilities to do is bring together various stakeholders to really revisit and constantly evaluate how this plan is going and how it might need to be changing. And so there are a couple of ideas at the end of this slide that at the end of this deck that I'd like to talk through. I'll also share that one of the for our statutory committee to be thinking about is, one, what are our key priorities as we see this plan as it's laid out? And where are we going to get to shared ownership of some of these pieces and start to embed this into our practice? And so I'm really excited to get to talk with our presidents and other leaders in the state about this later this month too. Yeah.
Any other questions?
All right. So right now I'm going to talk through the 3 cornerstones that you see outlined in the plan in front of you, 3 A's. Our first is aligned. And so this has been a conversation that I think has been already had in some ways here today, but is really recognizing that we as a higher education system need to be more aligned. And that's across the education to workforce continuum. That's aligned with our K-12 partners, that's aligned with the workforce. It's also aligned within ourselves. A conversation and an issue that was raised at every topical work group we gathered was around transfer, both explicitly transferring amongst our institutions, but also some of the other aspects of coordination amongst our institutions. How do our students move to and through that higher education pipeline? So in order to become more aligned, we see an objective as more efficient and more effective. This ensures that students can move through this process seamlessly, but also efficiently while maintaining high quality. This is where various strategies come in around credit mobility and around prior learning assessment, and as well dual enrollment. I know you'll hear, I think later today, about some dual enrollment discussion that's happened in the state. It's a program that is blown up. We have so many Tennesseans taking advantage of it. Let's ensure that they're taking advantage of it in a meaningful way in order to progress towards those degrees. And so a more efficient and effective system in that way. A continuous system. We have heard in the past from Jessica Gibson and her teams around how we're engaging adult learners. Everyone is learning in new ways. The higher education system is not necessarily confined anymore to the credit hours in the classroom, but we are recognizing that work-based learning, apprenticeships, on-the-job training, there are so many of these experiences that Tennesseans are taking in. How do we ensure that they can get on and off those ramps, earning the skills that they need to be able to make that progress in their careers, and ultimately find that way back to that degree and ensure that those experiences are counting towards that credential? And so an idea, a strategy that you'll see in the document is around a skills inventory. When Julie Roberts helped us to bring together a wide array of stakeholders around emerging workforce needs. skills. That's the word that is being often talked about in our labor and workforce development spaces. What are the skills that our students are taking? And so I think that's an opportunity for us as higher education to really think about how are we talking about how does this course or this program translate to the skills that those students need down the road. The last objective in this particular cornerstone is meaningful. And this really hinges on the idea that students want to know how what they're learning is connected to what they'll be doing in the real world. We convened a focus group earlier this summer of students, and this exact issue was raised. I'm taking this particular course. This doesn't feel like it connects to what I'm doing. How are we as higher education then communicating with these students? What are those skills and experiences that you're gaining in the classroom to support your ultimate goals? And thinking about not only that skill development and clarity, but also ensuring that we're articulating those skills back to students. There's been some really great work in the state around general education redesign, as an example, thinking about this directly. Yesterday, there was a good bit of discussion around quality assurance funding. And so how are we then leveraging these tools to ensure that we have continuous improvement in quality programs and that we're communicating that clearly to students? So I'm going to stop here with this aligned bucket. I've shared with you all a series of strategies and ideas that have been shared with us through these convenings. But really, I think as we want a more aligned higher education system, efficiency and effectiveness is really critical. Continuity for that student experience, and then meaning, really ensuring that we're not, I don't want to say it like quite like this, but like wasting time. The students really know how this connects to their experience. So I'm going to pause here with aligned, and I'm curious to hear what you all think.
Questions? Please.
Well, I love the fact that the more meaningful and students trying to connect what they are doing and how it's going to be meaningful in their careers. But I also think it's incumbent upon us in higher education to listen to that question and not do it the way we've always done it. Just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean we have to continue doing it that way. I think the student that comes to say they want to get an accounting degree deserves to really understand why a PE class is necessary. And that's a really silly example, but they're paying for that class. We ought to really be thinking about that student, I know it all goes back to value as well, is how we can really tell them that each and every individual class is going to be meaningful to them in their journey. So it's really a great opportunity for us to be introspective and really listen to our own answers to that question as well. So I appreciate you raising that.
Thank you.
Secretary Hargan, can I just follow up? I think as another point of that we should be striving to make sure that everything that we require now is meaningful, but to test and kick the tires, is it meaningful? Do we need to be offering that requirement? What statutes do we have in place at the state level that's forcing institutions to offer those programs? I know we've had conversations about that in the past. I think that's part of the consideration too.
Any other comments, questions? I will say, and I think you'll get to this in the next section under achievable, connecting the dots here is super important, making it easy, providing a lot of the pathways for a variety of different levels and locations is super important, which I think is what you're trying to get to here. I think unless we have, in today's age, unless we have an advisor or a guide that's going to help bring someone through that journey, this is still, we have a very overcomplicated system. And then that goes back to your previous section on guiding principles when it comes to understandable or being transparent. I love the fact that you've added that in among the other principles. I think there's just connecting these dots is still very complex because it's a complex system. So that piece of helping guide someone through the journey, I think, will become really important.
Thank you for that point. And yes, I'm excited to talk a little bit more about that and curious to dig in a little bit more here in this next segment. So cornerstone 2 is achievable. And this is really recognizing something that Chairman Scarlett just said. We make this process a lot harder than it needs to be for students. It is confusing, it is complicated, and there are a lot of great strategies that are already taking place at our campuses and at the state level to support some of this, but how do we build on some of those pieces? So really, we are thinking through this in terms of 3 objectives: making the system more achievable by making it accessible, affordable, and supported. The first is accessible. This is something that I think Tennessee has been recognized for some time around making a lot of really great progress on. Ensuring that students have the tools to engage in their higher education journey at any point in their journey. And that's really thinking about that advising infrastructure and support. We have, many examples of really strong programs operating in our high school settings. We also have our Reconnect navigators who are helping to support adult learners in engaging in this process. And then we also have these things already occurring on campuses as well that I want to talk a little bit about. But in the same vein, making something more accessible means not only providing maybe perhaps direct support to that individual and navigating the process, but also simplifying our communications. I think something that was really successful with Tennessee Promise and Reconnect is this notion of free. And so thinking through how are we able to get the right information into the hands of individuals, students, families, and others at the right time. Direct admissions is a really exciting opportunity in this way. We're going to be sending letters to students that says you're accepted. And for some students, this is the financial aid you're going to receive. That makes it so much more accessible to somebody who may not have otherwise been thinking about enrolling in post-secondary. Making higher education more affordable. Tennessee has a lot to be proud of in this regard. We are consistently among the highest in terms of our FTE funding from financial aid. We also spent a lot of time talking about this from the tuition and fee setting point yesterday, keeping our tuition and fees affordable for students, and then supporting that with robust state financial aid. But there are other opportunities that continue to kind of impede students' abilities to both access higher education and successfully complete. Basic needs is one of those big things. And while there have been many pilots and other initiatives to support that, how do we as a state continue to move the needle on making college more truly affordable so that any Tennessean can gain those new skills necessary to be successful in the workforce? This is also related to our operating investments and how we think about financial health at our institutions. We will be embarking on our outcomes-based funding formula review process shortly after this. But the state has really put its foot down, really said in some ways, we are going to recognize higher education's performance and outcomes. And that's been in place since 2010. How do we then leverage that formula to really drive us towards the things that we want to see? And this last, I'm not clicking. The last objective is supported. And this really is helping us ensure that the biggest challenges that students face are in the classroom. And so that's thinking through, once we get those students to the door, how are we thinking about advising support, coaching, and recognizing that life can happen. What are the flexible pathways that might need to exist for students to accommodate parents or part-time learners? And so thinking through, how do we ensure that those students are supported, as well as our campuses, to support students in their success in higher education. So in terms of achievable, making them more accessible, affordable, and supported, building off of a lot of the strong examples we've already got in place in this state and taking us a step further to ensure that more students can move to and through those pipelines to a degree.
Thank you. Really appreciate this presentation. And I love the 3 cornerstones. With respect to this one in particular, to what extent are we thinking about ways that AI can help us with the accessibility and support component of this stone? Think about like coaching and like providing coaches or limited capacity of guidance counselors and such. So can AI help us fill some of those gaps, particularly about, as you said, life kind of unpredictable twists and turns. Use AI to help us map those for given students and maybe, provide some of the support that, given the limited resources available at most high schools, can AI help us with that, I guess?
That's a great suggestion and one I'd like to be sure we reflect in here. I will say some of these conversations came up. I know our campuses are using some of these tools already, but we don't really have a good pulse on that. So I think that's a really great point and one that we need to reflect.
Amanda, you could just call TSU and ask them.
Okay.
As far as the direct admissions, I think it's a wonderful program to roll out to students. I know Dr. Gentile and I've had some discussion about it. And so I know this year's it's a pilot program, of course. I will say, as far as a point of interest, I guess, I would like to have seen all students given the opportunity within the state to be a part of this program, only because obviously with us waiving fees for those application fees, not going to reach all students in state. And so I'd asked for some numbers and you shared those with me, and I'm going to speak for just my area, I guess, if you will. But those served, let's say by Dyersburg State, 18 schools were in that area being served and 15 being treated. So 3 are not. So for those students within those 3 who will not have those fees waived, we've worked out a really great solution. And I want to say thank you to Dr. Gentile and team, because you're going to come visit us in September. So we're eager to see you, to have you. But I will just say, I wish, and again, I know it's a pilot program, but I would love to have seen all students served in the state.
How long is the pilot program? 1 year? So a year from now, we should have results and potentially
That's
roll
exactly
out.
right. And so, but during this year, when you have, again, some students served and some not, that's just something that I wanted to bring up and again, say, I think it's a great program. I think it's going to be fantastic. I think a year from now, we're going to be excited sharing the results, but I do wish we had that opportunity for all.
And something I'll just quickly add to that point. Yes, we are actively also working with those researchers in order to make sure that evaluation, hopefully we're seeing the same positive results that program has had elsewhere in the country. But I also will say, and I'm not going to put Brett's team on the spot, but I know that there are some efforts around the College for Tennessee and College App Week that might be able to support some of those pieces as well. So we can follow up on that. Anything else on this achievable cornerstone before I move to the last one?
So Amanda, I think you did a great job putting this together. Really encouraged. I'll repeat something I said yesterday in the work session on the same theme as Secretary Hargett comment earlier, and that is in academia, we do a great job preparing students to be future leaders. But academia seems to be slower to kind of adopt need for change. So to me, it seems like a large focus of this really needs to be on how do we help bridge the institutions to think out of the box, to think differently about how we do things, how we should be training and preparing people for the future, especially given all of the tools and conveniences that we have. Back to Commissioner Perry's point, we've got so many advances in technology and other things that I don't think we're fully utilizing and fully taking advantage of the system as a state. And the more we can encourage the institutions to move out of the way things have always been valuable, I think this will be.
Thank you for that point. And I do think there's, we heard things about, an opportunity for a body like THEC in particular to be bringing folks together to discuss some of these innovations and to be thinking about how those can be scaled. Because there are a lot of amazing practices happening on our campuses. And so how do we make sure that that information is getting shared more broadly? You actually teed me up very nicely for, I don't know that I have a favorite cornerstone, but if I did, it might be this one, agile. Tennessee must have a higher education system that's more agile. And this is really, I think, something that it's not going to sound like anything particularly earth-shattering, but a recognition of some really important basics that we as a coordinating body in higher education, as a coordinated system across higher education, need to be thinking about as we have 8 different bodies or governing boards operating from our public systems, as well as a wide array of our private colleges, both public or private not-for-profit, as well as private for-profit institutions in the state. And so to be a system that is more agile, we need one that is proactive, that is coordinated and data informed. And so to be proactive, this is recognizing some of the things that I think have been echoed in some of the comments made already. Tennessee can't just react to the needs. We can't just be responding to what is happening, but we should be using things like data and information to help us better see the future. This came up yesterday in terms of the academic program review process. How can we be using labor market data to help drive us forward instead of necessarily responding to the needs as they are immediately? Of course, there is some need for us to be in conversations and collaborating to be responsive to the needs of today, but how are we stepping ahead? And that looks like a couple of things, at least as we've thought about the strategies in this plan. One is it's been really exciting through this process to get to collect a lot of different perspectives on higher education. And while we do this somewhat informally, there's really not a formal structure by which we're talking to students, at least from the THEC perspective, on a regular basis, as well as gathering our campuses and sort of just doing a pulse check. How are things going? Thinking big picture, because a lot of us are so much in the day-to-day. So I think there are spaces for us as we think about both gathering those perspectives from students, from families and others in the state. It's also leveraging the leadership that we have across the state. One of the strategies you'll see here is around the idea of a president's council. Several other coordinating boards across the country have something like this as a tool. Stephen does this a lot already, but in some very informal structures as well. How can we be bringing those folks together to really be understanding the challenges that they're facing today and working together to solve them? And bringing those issues here to this body, and then as well with our relationship with the various state entities. A more coordinated higher education system. And this is really, I think, a recognition that we have made a pretty substantive shift in this past decade. We went from having 2 governing bodies in the state to having 8 governing bodies in the state. And that does require some, I think, substantive consideration in terms of how we're bringing folks together. So I mentioned those public entities, but we also have a wide breadth of higher education entities in the state. Sure, Scarlett, a few, maybe years ago now, you asked to learn a little bit more about our DPSA authorized institutions. I'll tell you that that is not necessarily something that's directly integrated with our student information system right now. And so what our knowledge and kind of awareness of these intersections that exist across our campuses is a huge opportunity for us as a state. And so thinking about how do we ensure we have a comprehensive view of this whole enterprise. When we're talking about skills inventories and preparing Tennesseans for the future, we need to be inclusive of this entire enterprise. And so really getting a better handle on what that is. Again, regularly gathering. There's, I think, a real desire and appetite for us to be bringing folks together, leveraging that convening responsibility and authority to help to both share best practices, but also to discuss the challenges that we face and to do that together. The last thing I'll mention in this particular coordinated bucket really has to do with our relationship between higher education and our state agency partners and peers. There are so many intersections that exist right now between higher education and the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. There are resources out there to support students going on to post-secondary. SNAP ENT, Workforce Pell was just mentioned in Stephen's update. There are opportunities for us to lead in terms of better coordination amongst those entities in order to really maximize student experience. And I think there's a real appetite and desire, not to say that we don't have great partnerships with those folks, but I think we can be thinking even further about them. And then the last objective that I'll mention here is around being data informed. So this has kind of come up, I feel like, in a few of my comments already, but really thinking through how, as a state, we are leveraging the vast resources that we have to better inform our progress and to inform where we need to move and improve. We've been very fortunate, THEC specifically, to recently be granted a new position for a data scientist, which is, I think, someone we're thinking about doing some of these things from the THEC vantage point. But our campuses are also regularly engaging with their data, and they're having conversations across their campuses in terms of building the literacy amongst their campus in terms of what exists, but also how they can better use that to inform practice. And so thinking through how do we scale something like that? Building on Dr. Jacob Kamer on our team has instituted these critical data issues. And we have had now 2 working groups come together, one around this out-of-state Pell that you guys have all heard about in the past, but also our course level data collection. And really thinking about scaling something like that at the state level. How can we come together to talk about on-time graduation rates? And do so in a really productive and healthy manner so that we better understand what are the challenges undergirding some of these numbers and how do we help get all of us over further along in that process. So I am, I think, at this point going to ramble about data informed, so I'm going to stop there. But these are the 3 objectives that we have identified as part of the Agile bucket, and I'm really interested to hear what you all think.
Any questions?
That's a quick question about data. My understanding is that currently when we look at time to completion in the post-secondary context, we're looking at a 6-year average. But I understand that one of the things that OB3 does is really kind of force us to look at things on a 4-year scale. Is that right? And if so, like, are we adjusting state metrics to better capture what's happening over 4 years as opposed to over 6?
Great question. So on time in the instance of our bachelor's degree institutions would be considered that 4-year. We have been reporting on 4-year measures for some time for informational purposes. Right now, our outcomes-based funding formula for the universities in specific uses that 1.5 time or 6-year graduation rate. I know that is very much a topic that's been a discussion in the past with the OBF review committee, and I suspect that that will get raised again.
Scarlett. If I may piggyback on that, that's actually a conversation we had with the data. I brought this up with the data informed working group that we convened on this. Is that in the past, even bringing up on-time graduation, we run into a lot of hurdles because there are a lot of challenges that impede the students to be able to graduate on time, and it can come across as though when I bring it up, I'm saying institutions, you're failing students. That's not why I bring it up. I bring it up because I want to identify what are the challenges institutions you're facing. How can we help? What can we do? What strategies do we need to put in place? Be able to have that conversation in a space where we're not getting hackles up necessarily. That's where I want us to be and where I want us to go, and that gets us there. We have a lot of legislators who ask us about on-time graduation all the time. In Tennessee, we have some of the lower on-time graduation rates, given the student body that we're serving in the state of Tennessee. But in order to address it, we have to be able to discuss it, and then from discussing it to put in the strategies. I feel that this is also my favorite cornerstone, because when we talk to people around this room and others, everyone loves it when Tennessee is out there in the headlines for doing innovative things. I feel that as an organization, we lost sight of that coming out of focus, where we ramped up coordination and academic program approval. But there's a lot of stuff that took our minds away from thinking about how to successfully tackle the challenges. And this gets us back on track to do that, to be able to identify those strategies going forward.
Sorry. This isn't necessarily a question, just something that I kind of want us to think about when we're talking about being proactive and getting like the student perspective and hearing from them. In my time as a student, a lot of the ways that I've shared my experience has been through different like surveys and things like that. And even as like a super active and engaged student, which I'd consider myself to be, it still seems a bit like lackluster, for lack of a better word, because a lot of the times like those surveys are pretty lengthy, and while they could garner a lot of responses from students, I feel like they could oftentimes be pretty inaccurate because students would just like kind of click through it. At least I've noticed that in my experience and in my peers' experience. So this is something that I think is a great idea. I think we just really need to think and be super intentional about how we're collecting this data from students so that it's accurate. And I know that that's like a pretty tough ask since surveys are obviously the easiest way to go about it, but I feel like that could often be pretty inaccurate in terms of the data that it's giving us. So that's not a question, just something that I want to think about.
I really appreciate that point. And if you've got other suggestions too for mechanisms that we might be able to share, I'd love to hear them. Thank you.
First, I'll start going back to the principles. I love the fact that we start with the word ambitious. So I'll say that first. And then as it relates to agile, I think Comptroller Mumpower yesterday in the conversation used the word nimble. And I think this is a really important thing for us as commissioners to be thinking about. And then my question becomes, as we think about new programs, we have an opportunity around delegation that was discussed yesterday here inside THEC. And I think one question as there's more engagement and maybe a more formal role with the leaders of our institutions is how can we help them look at being more nimble and being able to be more efficient in program approvals internally inside the institutions, which we talked a bit about yesterday. So I think that question of how we can help those leaders inside their institutions to kind of set expectations around that.
Thank you for that point. And I think I'm excited about the possibility, how it will look when we're gathering these individuals to hear more of their insights as a group on that. Thank you.
Commissioner Dieter brought up a really good point. And whenever you give somebody a 50-question survey, you're probably really going to elicit responses from, and don't take this the wrong way, the super student, who is really engaged and really is going to geek out and go through and look at and be willing to answer all that. Most people are not going to do that. Yeah. But I know we're convening all these groups of stakeholders, on different issues. How often are we engaging and inviting student representatives to those conversations? When we're in an area, why not invite a few students? So if nothing else, even if they can just sit in the room, be a sponge and learn from that process. But I think we could do a much better job of realizing that, because if everything we do is truthfully centered around the student, then how can we have the conversations and get anywhere without the student being engaged in the process?
No, I think it's an absolutely important point. And that it really, hearing from a lot of these key constituency groups was raised in the earlier parts of this planning process, which is why we were really fortunate. And I have my master plan project team to thank for this, to convene both we're called traditional age students, those who've recently made that move into higher education from high school, and then as well as our adult learners. But you're right. I don't know that we have a great mechanism that we're doing that consistently, at least at the THEC level. I know some parts of our organization are engaging with students, but to do so in this intentional manner, I think is really important.
I want to pull the innovation thread for a moment, kind of going back to the beginning and listening to what several of the commission members mentioned in regards to AI and, not just recreating the current wheel. Is there something that's new? Not doing the same thing over and over again. When we look at the data, we're looking at data, in the rears, right? So we have that information, but we're not always thinking about what the future state is. Is there an opportunity to bring those people at a national, international level thinking about what's next for businesses to come to the table and be part of those conversations? So you're thinking about, the Googles of the world, Amazon of the world, Oracle of the world, whatever it might be that's relevant to Tennessee, this region, or this country, or even internationally, and getting kind of opportunities with them and learning from them. Because if they're really setting the future when it comes to technology in the business space, then that has an opportunity to potentially be on the innovative side inside of schools. And reflect on our tour yesterday at TSU. It's pretty impressive, seeing the amount of technology that they're working with. Are all schools doing that? Are all students experiencing that? If that's really the way of the future, how do we, as a state, get ahead of that as opposed to behind that? And I feel like if we're just getting the same people together in a room, we're going to be talking about the same things. On the flip side, there's a lot of great things happening at our campuses that I do agree with you. I don't hear about those being shared. And I think that's also a really good opportunity just inside of the state alone. So, another, I don't know if it's innovation or not, but 120 credit hours they're required to graduate, which I keep learning more and more information about why we have that. Are there opportunities to change that so we can think about different programming types? Think about Blue Sky and the way they've been able to redevelop a program from 4 years to 2.5 years. Like, what are those different things? I also, Flex, in the constant conversations we have about money, are there innovation type grants that could be leveraged at the campus level, at a state level, to be able to help drive this forward? And lastly here, you all put out a lot of information. It's a fantastic information. I think there's a big opportunity, and I'm not too sure whether I saw this in the strategies, for you to provide perspective, insights, ideas, suggestions, as opposed to just putting the information out there. Is there a way to read it to benefit the broader eventual master plan?
Really appreciate that. The insights, not just data piece. I love that.
Hey, Chair Scarlett, to your first point about the companies and connecting with institutions, I thought that yesterday too. I don't know if President Tucker is still in here. Hello, sir. We had a great tour guide yesterday for the TSU campus, and he's a civil engineer major. And I learned a lot from him later from the comptroller about the Boring Company and its tunnel. I was thinking, man, we got civil engineering program at Tennessee State University. Well, maybe an awesome opportunity if the Boring Company were to work closely with TSU or these companies that are really coming to Tennessee right now. How can we facilitate those partnerships to really give those students an amazing experience? We work closely with Pat Sheehy of Tennessee Board Roundtable. He's here today, Business Roundtable. But linking those students to those opportunities, I think it's got to be a strategy for us too.
Thank you.
So back to the secretary's point that he made earlier about classes and their relevance and all of that sort of thing, and listening to this process, how much of that structure could be reimagined? I know there's probably some limits there, but we're in a sort of a unique time in terms of with accreditation changes and different things that are done. And I'll admit, I've got a hybrid family, I would say, with an oldest son who's in university in England. His degree is 3 years, and he takes absolutely nothing outside of his major. As a guy who teaches political science on the side, I don't advocate for that. I like that students are exposed to a lot of different things. But when Chairwoman Scarlett was talking about programs that could produce a bachelor's degree in 2 years or 3 years, or how much space is there right now for innovation that could, if not necessarily reimagine what a normal bachelor's degree is, but yet provide opportunities to perhaps create a concentrated degree or something new in higher ed? And is that being done in any other state, or do we just have to look overseas to see examples of that? It's just a lot of opportunities at the moment, and I wonder if any of us are kind of thinking about that sort of redesign process this year.
I will share that I know Dr. Julie Roberts and her team have been doing some initial exploration here, in addition to Secretary Hargit's comments on this in the past. And so I think there is definitely some more that we could update the commission on in terms of that landscape. Thank you.
I would say even I got to tour Blue Sky the other day, and though they do get students out in 2.5 years, it's still 120 credit hours. And so that's like 18 credit hours of what students are taking. What opportunities are there for efficiency? There's no program in Tennessee that's a 3-year degree that like strips out general education at this time. But there are examples across the country, Utah, Indiana. I know we've worked with Chris Mustaine in the Secretary's office. I'm looking into those too. So more to come.
My last slide, getting to Commissioner Stafford's question a little bit earlier. Goal setting, I know, is a really critical part of this conversation. And while you heard some directional statements and objectives throughout this plan, there are some pieces here as we think about measurement and otherwise that are going to continue to develop. And things that honestly can't just develop internally with us, but need to develop in close partnership with our campuses. So as we think about some key milestones over this next year, we obviously need to disseminate the plan. Stephen mentioned before, getting this in front of the boards of trustees in October. This is going to be, I think, a really critical opportunity for us to both share this, but also for our campuses to really, beyond the relationships and connections that have already been occurring in the space, really see themselves in the plan, recognize where they are going to be contributing to some of these goals. In fact, some of the feedback that we've been getting already on the plan is really a need for us to be very explicit. Who is owning what, and how are we going to be making progress on this going forward? I've gotten some great tips from some of our campuses as well around perhaps we have constituency groups and other things. So that to say, this is not necessarily an exhaustive list, but I think recognizes some of the key pieces we need to do. So first, disseminating that plan, getting it out on the streets and getting folks familiar with it. Identifying and collecting measures. I want to get to a point that Chair Scarlett raised, which is we at THEC do collect a lot of things as end of term data, but our campuses are looking at real-time information all the time to inform how students are progressing through the semester and otherwise. That's really why, while THEC can help to demonstrate and show progress on some of these things, we need to partner hand in hand with the campuses in thinking about how they're localizing some of these outputs to their day-to-day conversations. What are the data conversations they're having at the institution level that can then be scaffolded up to THEC? The statutory committee, Stephen mentioned who that group was earlier. We have convened that group annually in the past, but that's really been around the outcomes-based funding formula. We are really thinking that needs to change. This group was created, yes, to help support and inform the outcomes-based funding formula, but it was also created to help drive forward this master plan. And so thinking through how do we leverage that meeting as a way for us to really kind of annually check in. How are we doing? What needs to change? What isn't working? And I think that that's something that I see as a major tool for us as we think about making this a living, breathing plan. And then the last point I'll make, and one that I think requires much deeper conversation for sure with our campuses, is really how this plan is applied. Of course, my brain goes through like the data perspective and thinking through measurement, but how are we going to let this plan take root at our campuses and let them use their unique spaces and places to really help drive us forwards to the more valuable higher education system. So these are just a couple of milestones that I wanted to mention. Milestones and really goals will be a key part of this plan. But I want to see if you guys have any thoughts or comments on this particular piece. And then I'm excited really to, talk about our next steps.
Any questions or comments? Move on to next steps.
Okay, great. So as Stephen mentioned, I think something that we will do is navigate the desire for us to have that special called meeting in September to kind of really react to a more complete version of this or closer to that point. And then the plan is to bring this in front of you all in November for final review and approval. So those are the key points.
What are our expectations in September? Are we reviewing a draft of this plan?
I think what it would be is likely further progress on what you're seeing here. I think there's certainly the possibility of a draft, but I don't want to overcommit to what exactly the detail of that would be at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Klein.
Yep, thank you.
Our next agenda item is the transmission of the fiscal year 25-26 proposed operating budget. Mr. Russell Van Zomeren, you will recognize.
Thank you, Chair Scarlett, Director Gentile, members of the Commission. Russell Van Zomeren, Senior Director of Fiscal Policy, here with the FY 25-26 proposed operating budgets. In lieu of the usual slides today, I'll give a high-level overview, talk through the materials, and then take any questions or comments you may have. As a reminder, this body's task is neither to approve nor disapprove of the budgets themselves, but rather provide any commentary before approving a transmission on to our partners at Finance and Administration. Looking at the FY 25-26 proposed operating budgets, you'll see that our institutions are projecting to make about 5.2 billion in revenues and expend about 5.1 in expenditures. So on average, most of our institutions looking at a balanced budget. There are a few exceptions there that we'll talk about here in a second. You'll find a high-level summary of those revenues and expenditures in tables 3 and 4. This year's budget includes 570 million in capital outlay and about 50 million for maintenance. You'll see that in table 2. On tuition and mandatory fees, table 5, you'll see that all institutions are in compliance with the Commission's 0 to 6.5% binding range. Most institutions, of course, well below that range. Within your materials, you'll also see ENG athletics funding, that's table 7, formula needs analysis, table 8. Finally, in our cover letter, we did touch on the Tennessee State University proposed budget. The proposed budget shows continuing tuition challenges, high expenditures on scholarships, with overall expenditures exceeding revenues and reserves for the proposed 25-26 budget year. That gap, the deficit between the expenditures and those revenues, will be made up by a partial reallocation of the funding made in 2022, that 250 million investment in capital. With that, staff have reviewed the FY 25-26 proposed operating budgets, recommend that the Commission transmit on to F&A with comment. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
What sort of questions do we have? Please.
One of the things you flagged in the written materials, as you mentioned there, was about the $50 million in deferred maintenance, but that's about 300 million short of what we requested to address that particular issue. What are we like? How are we thinking of dealing with that issue in the long term?
Great question. I appreciate the question. We have had almost a decade now that 50 million recurring, so that sort of sets the base for the conversation in any given year. It's more than you'll see in other states, but obviously less than this commission requested and less than we think is necessary. In any given year, we are looking at well over $300 million in deferred maintenance. And that's just on an annual basis. So you look at this year, 50 million, that we received versus a 330 something million dollar request. You have a deficit there, 275, $280 million. That obviously is growing over time. The conversations I've had and Stephen's had with presidents, I've had with some of our CFOs, is about increasing that base level, that recurring maintenance. So obviously, we would love to see 330 million in funding for deferred maintenance in every budget year. A lot of years, that's not necessarily going to happen. And so if we can get that base level conversation up, it sets a new conversation for us and prevents more of the backlog that we're seeing on an annual basis.
Continuing on with these conversations, I've had presentations in Senate Finance on this topic about capital maintenance, and I've talked to Commissioner Jim Bryson and talking with the presidents and the CFOs. There are some information gaps that we need to overcome with those who are dispersing the funds. And I know that Jason Cavender and Russell and their associated teams for capital have been looking under the hood and how can we better communicate and how as we as higher education can better communicate to our stakeholders what the campuses are doing already for capital maintenance. That's part of the disconnect. Part of the disconnect is state funders saying, well, shouldn't the institutions be putting money towards capital maintenance? And the answer to that is they are, but they still need support from the state. So providing better information. We had a really good meeting. The CFOs were convened a couple of weeks ago, and I know that we talked to Commissioner Ragsdale about this, about energy savings performance grants management. An institution, one of our institutions, University of Memphis, is interested in exploring that further, as are some others. Those are strategies to addressing capital maintenance that is outside of funding from the state, but has some debt implications to it too. So we're taking an all perspective account on this, and how can we help streamline that message, but also what are other strategies that are out there to address that, because it is a substantial need.
Any other questions? What do other states do? Are there any other innovative ways to think about the financing of this or financing deferred maintenance? You mentioned that the universities are putting in their own money. Yes, I understand that, but is there another way to think about the state's putting in money, university putting in, they create some sort of investment account, or is there a different way of enabling it?
I'd say a lot of states do not actually fund capital to begin with. They rely on bonding from institutions to do it, to address it. There have been other strategies in the past that have been floated. I don't know whether the states are doing this, but other strategies could be to bond for capital maintenance, take out what is the whole pie of deferred maintenance as bonds and address it over time. But quite frankly, and this is a topic that's not well explored on the national scene. SHIO, our organization that does a lot of our surveys, they'll from time to time do a survey on our request on what's happening in other states. There's not a lot out there in best practices. Put that in a different way, this is an issue that's an issue everywhere. Probably one of the top 3 issues when it comes to our institutions is their capital maintenance and deferred maintenance.
And it's only going to get worse because the building's going to continue to get older, right? Are there amazing financial whizzes that can be brought to the table to help think through? We talk about not doing things the same way we've always done it, and think about this pathway of innovation. Are there other ways more innovatively to manage this for our campuses, knowing that it's not going to go away, but it sounds like we keep pushing it down line as opposed to addressing challenge. I don't know who those people would be, but I'm sure there's some really smart.
I mentioned yesterday that strategic financial plan that we're working on that we'll have before you here in a few months. And one of the things that we've talked about in that document and that's come up as a policy idea here at THEC over the last decade would be to embed more of those maintenance costs in the original outlay expenditure. So could you basically provide seed funding upfront to say the state has provided maintenance for this building over some period of time from the get-go, and the institutions obviously would have a stake there as well. That way you're not constantly, attacking this issue from behind, but you've actually got out in front of it from the second you put a shovel in the ground.
I want to applaud the University of Memphis. They're looking at some rather innovative things to do right now as it relates to deferred maintenance and energy cost. And I would encourage them to keep going down that path. I think you're headed down a really good path that could be transformative. Sometimes I think maybe our secondary schools do a better job of this than our higher education institutions do. So we may be able to learn some things from them. But when yesterday I made the point about energy cost, and if you can get a handle on those energy costs, some of those funds can be used for deferred maintenance. And again, to our friends at the University of Memphis, I know you're headed down that type of path. I hope you'll keep going down it, and it could serve as an example to others. And I think Tennessee State's looking at something in that arena as well. So those could be some informative things that can address this problem. I think that if we believe that the state could reasonably come up with just that massive amount of an appropriation deferred maintenance, we may be kidding ourselves a little bit because it's so bold, but I think it would be incumbent upon us to take some innovative measures to try and address it as well.
Yeah, one last thank you specific to TSU. And I know we've got President Tucker here, so maybe we'll hear from him. But I noticed that 2 of the budget kind of reductions that TSU proposes are specific to research. I certainly hope it doesn't touch the AI research, because we had a fantastic tour at TSU yesterday and saw the developments that they're working on in AI. So I sure hope it's not touching that. But also a 31% reduction in budgeting for student services. And I just wondered what services are being reduced.
I can't speak specifically to which services, and obviously we're happy to have President Tucker up here if he wishes. What I will say is you're likely to see some declines across the board on the expenditures that are student facing as you have fewer students. So last year's budget was designed to serve a much larger number of students. That was the anticipation, obviously not the reality. As you trim that budget back, it makes logical sense. We're expecting to see the student services drop some amount.
We'll get a more robust answer to that. President Tucker has stepped out of the room, but we'll engage. On the research side, and that could be due to like expected trimmed costs to make the budget. They've also lost some research funding from the federal government changes. Not a lot, but it's some of the last 6 months as well. So that could be playing into that, but we'll get a more robust response to that. I think the biggest thing to stand out though for the budget, and he mentioned this as well, but with TSU specifically, the financial ambulance they were in last year, as projected, that will stick with them for some time. The biggest reason that they are in the place that they are in is because of scholarshiping and increasing their discount rate substantially from about 17% upwards to 50%, was it?
Close to it, yes, sir.
50%. So as those students matriculate or are not retained, that scholarship level will come down. That's going to be some time.
I have one kind of detailed question on table 5. Middle Tennessee total mandatory fees increase was 9.5%. Seems quite high in comparison to the rest of the schools. Can you give us some insight on that?
Happy to. So the bulk of that increase is in the athletics fee. My understanding, MTSU has gone to TSSBA recently to ask for funding to renovate their football stadium. That's not the sole purpose of the fee, but it will help update not only that stadium, but maybe some of the other athletics facilities on campus.
Are the overwhelming majority of students at MTSU in athletics?
My understanding is that they are not.
Oh, Treasurer Lillard, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back to the discussion of deferred maintenance and all that was had just a minute ago. Russell or someone on the staff may want to comment on the role that plant funds can and sometimes do play in funding deferred maintenance and other needs of a university, funds that the university has been able to keep from bond issues, that they save money on the project, et cetera. And do we have a current report that shows the amount of plant funds that are on hand at each one of the universities currently?
We can pull that report. Thank you for the question. We can pull that report for you on the issue of expending plant funds or reserves on capital maintenance. This is something I think Dr. Gentile referenced a moment ago. The task our body has, that the THEC staff has, is showing that campuses are doing their part, or assessing to what extent campuses are doing their part on deferred maintenance, not necessarily waiting for those state appropriations. It's a data point that we haven't quite conceptualized until recently how to capture. I want to shout out Patty Miller here behind me, who's done a great job partnering with MTSU and some of our other campuses to come up with a way of measuring and calculating this. That report, I think, is almost ready to go out in terms of sending it on to the campuses, requesting data from them. My hope is that when we reconvene in November alongside that appropriation request, we'll have a lot more to say about what the campuses are doing outside of state appropriations, to make sure that they're doing their part on maintenance and operation or deferred maintenance.
Yeah, and focusing specifically on the issue that universities are not required to use plant funds for deferred maintenance. They may, but they are not required to, and there may be other uses to which those funds are put. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Van Zomeren? Hearing none, we'll look for a motion and a second.
I move it for
Secretary.
approval.
Thank you.
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman,
Aye.
Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock, Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Rader, Commissioner Rader, Commissioner Ragsdale, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Secretary Hargit. Oh, Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 10 ayes.
Motion carries. Thank you all. Next agenda item is the policy update for the THEC Rules of Procedure. Mr. Scott Sloan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. The item before you on this one is a policy update impacting our audit committee. As you're aware, with this dissolution of the TSAC board effective July 1st, the governance and operational responsibilities from that board shifted to THEC. This necessitates us adding some language with regard to our audit committee into the THEC policy manual. The language proposed is in compliance with and mirrors the current charter. It maintains 5 members with 3-year terms respectively. I will say that Commissioner Stafford has an amendment that he feels would improve that. We have provided copies of that 1-sentence amendment to you, and Commissioner Stafford can read that amendment into the record if he wishes.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. So one of the challenges with an internal audit function is that it's supposed to be independent, and the selection of members of the committee should be made by the board. Keep the process independent as much as possible. So the language that would like to offer as an adjustment is, if you'll look at the actual policy itself, which is in your reading materials, subject number 5, second paragraph, changing that first sentence in the third full paragraph, changing that sentence to read, the audit committee of the commission shall consist of 5 voting members selected in accordance with the audit committee charter. The charter now states selection is made by the executive director, and that should be changed and will be changed to be made by the chair, consistent with the other committees.
Thank you, Commissioner Stafford. Our next agenda item addresses the addition of the 2 more members from the THEC board to attain a total of 5 audit committee members. That's the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from Mr. Sloan? Yes, Treasurer Lillard.
Madam Chair, I just want to move approval of the item with Commissioner Stafford's amendment and the other amendments that were offered by the staff.
Do you hear a second?
Second.
Madam Secretary.
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman,
Aye.
Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock, Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Rader, Commissioner Ragsdale, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 10 ayes.
Wonderful. Motion carries. And so next we have committee appointments. And since we have a new commission member, Commissioner Dieter, who needs to be appointed to committee, we do have 2 vacancies on the audit committee. Additionally, all the committee appointments for the Access, Academics, and Student Success Committee and the Finance and Operations Committees are confirmed on an annual basis. I'd like to nominate Ms. Dieter to serve on our Finance and Operations Committee. Dr. Gentile, who would you like to nominate?
Yes, on our current charter, the executive director would nominate the audit committee, and I've conferred with Mr. Ragsdale and Commissioner Smith for their placement on the audit committee. However, I have talked with Commissioner Stafford about that as well. And
Please. I'll second it. Yes. Let's confirm that. So you move that not only the 2 members of the audit committee to be added, but also for Ms. Dieter to be added to the other committee. Okay, finance operation. Okay, wonderful. So yes. Please proceed with roll call.
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman, Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock, Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Rader,
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 11 ayes.
Excellent. Motion carries. Thank you, and welcome back to your committees. Our next agenda item is the rulemaking hearing rule revision for Tennessee Future Scholarship, Tennessee Future Teacher Scholarship. Mr. Tim Phelps, hi, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Dr. Gentile. Tim Phelps, the Senior Director for Grants and Scholarships. You should have the proposed rule for the Tennessee Future Teacher Scholarship before you. But before I cover the changes, wanted to provide a brief summary of the program itself. This loan forgiveness program is intended to encourage students to enter the teaching field. Some of the requirements the students must meet are be enrolled at least half-time, be a junior or senior or a post-baccalaureate student, maintain a minimum GPA that's required by the educator preparation program, and also sign a promissory note that they will provide the teaching service. The service commitment that is incurred by the recipient requires teaching in a targeted setting, and that is defined as a critical shortage area, critical shortage subject area, or a distressed or at-risk county. The critical shortage areas, those are determined by the Department of Education, and the distress and at-risk counties are determined by the Department of Economic and Community Development. The recipients, they can receive the award until earning a degree, until they no longer meet the standards of the EPP or 3 years have passed since they first enrolled. Here are the first 3 years. This is a 5-year pilot program. Here are the applicants, recipients, and dollars that we've expended for the first 2 years of the program. For the 25-26 academic year, this reflects 66 applicants. We actually have communicated with the institutions in the last couple of weeks to remind them of the changes to the program that took effect this past legislative session. We also sent follow-up emails to the institutions when the bill was proposed to make changes to the program. The institutions responded and essentially gave us increased participation numbers. The applicants that we had as of a few weeks ago weren't really reflecting that. So we followed up with them to remind them, hey, you said there would be some additional applicants, potentially additional recipients. So we reached out to them. We are now up to almost 100 applicants at this point. So we are making every effort to try and expend the full appropriation of the program. In addition, we are working with the Tennessee Department of Education, working with SCORE, and we plan to reach out to teachers who are teaching on a teaching permit who do not yet have their license. Those students or those individuals would be eligible for the program as well. One question that we may ask, and we look at these modest numbers for the program at this point, is what would we consider success for the program? And really, if we are able to expend the full appropriation that we have, again, this is a 5-year pilot program. We have about $900,000 each year. If we can get to that point where we can fully expend that appropriation, then I think that would be a success at this point. In the past, for some of our previous loan forgiveness programs, we did have a success rate essentially, which was the number of recipients of the program who provided the teaching service. But again, looking at the short window that we have for this program, then I think fully expending the appropriations. And that really can be two benefits. One, obviously, we're helping students get their initial teaching licensure. But then looking at it from a financial aid perspective, you're looking at potentially reducing the student loan debt that those students incur as well. The proposed rule changes that we have for the program, again, it will allow post-baccalaureate students to participate in the program. It does reduce the teaching commitment from 4 years to 2 years. And then it did establish an annual award amount of $3,500, whereas before we had essentially a last dollar calculation that the schools had to determine the final award amount for that. Recommend passage of the rule and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Phelps, please?
Mr. Phelps, I'm sorry if I missed it. Can you go back a slide?
Yes.
The acceptance rate in 23, 24 was awfully low. If you stated it, I missed it. What caused that?
Yeah, great question. So that was the first year of the program. So it had just passed the legislature, trying to get the word out to those, to the schools, to the individuals as well. I think part of that was a lot of the students didn't have the time to, or either didn't want to participate or decided it wasn't for them as far as a teaching commitment. And so I think that was part of the reason as well that we had a low one. Did you want to?
Clarification, you mean of those students who applied, they applied, but then decided not for me?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Treasurer Lillard?
Yes, I wanted to move approval of the item, Madam Chair.
I do have one more question. I'm sorry, if you don't mind me asking. As far as looking at this, the map here and looking at the distress systems that are represented in our state, we do have several through each of the grand divisions. And then I know obviously, and it's proposed to include those that are at risk, but what deems a school system as being critically short of teachers? Do you happen to know that? Because as far as I know, I mean, there are shortages all over the state in every school system.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what really deems them as being, I believe you said, yeah, critically short.
Critical shortage subject area,
Mhm.
which
Gotcha.
essentially is determined by the Department of Education. And so those are the subject areas like mathematics,
I got you, I'm
English,
sorry.
and
I
so
got you, I
forth.
didn't read that
Yeah.
correctly. Another question, I guess, was it discussed, as far as looking at even a greater amount than the 3,500 per year?
Yeah. The initial proposed legislation did have a maximum award of 5,000, but when we received the responses from the institutions and provided that for the fiscal note, and again, part of the reason that we reached out to the institutions, we would expend above the 900,000 appropriation that we have. So I think there was an effort to lower that back down. So, but obviously the numbers don't tell that just yet, but we'll have to see.
I just want to piggyback on what Commissioner Allman was saying there. The appropriation assumes a certain number of applicants or I guess recipients maybe.
It just provides or appropriates a dollar amount.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is there any opportunity to say, hey, in light of the number of recipients we're getting, is it possible to reallocate? Is there an opportunity? I was a school teacher, and so I think $1,750 a semester, I just weep.
Yeah, I completely understand. The award amount is set in statute, so we would not have any flexibility to change that.
All right, last question.
No.
And I as well got a degree in education, secondary education. You have a passion, obviously, for going into education, as with any profession. The pay is not great, right? So when you look at this and you're wanting to recruit those who are graduating to go into a county and give 2 years, and it's already going to be a challenge. We were even discussing this a little bit, Commissioner Perry and I were. Would there be an option even for consideration? I know this is not right at this moment, looking at maybe giving 2 years at this amount, and then if you give 4 years, and looking at having that loan forgiven, if you will, in different increments there. Some consideration there, because again, compensation is not great. And then 3,500, while that's a nice amount, that's not a significant amount. And then you're giving a school system who they're already having challenges in getting the resources there that they need to properly teach the students that they have with new teachers who are going to give 2-year commitment, and then possibly move on, and just to keep them there, I guess is what I'm trying to say too. Looking at something there where they buy in and they stay longer than 2 years, possibly 4. But what is the application process? Sorry, that's not my question. What is the application process for someone to apply for the scholarship?
Yeah.
Is it lengthy? Is it a 1 page? Is it give you your name? What is the?
It's a very simplified online application. Typically, when we have a pilot program, we have a system that we use to administer all of our grants and scholarships. But when it's a pilot program, we don't necessarily have the time or the resources to put that into the system. So we try to make it as simple. And it's literally an online application that a student can fill in, click submit, and then it comes directly to us. So it's a very straightforward process.
We just have to get the word out, right? We have to really get the word out to everyone because it
Yeah.
sounds like everyone should apply for this and then just see.
I totally agree, Commissioner Holman. I would say that one of the things that I'm excited about is in working with the Department of Education and SCORE and reaching out to those teachers with a teaching permit that don't yet have the license, is that my understanding is there's a significant number of those. So if we're able to get the word out to them, then that can definitely increase these numbers.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you for the question.
As again, bringing back my financial aid days, when this proposal for the scholarship was first coming out, we did have a little bit of heartburn on it, in that we've seen programs like this in the other iterations. Some in financial aid call programs like this groans, grants turned into loans, and sometimes that prospect out there scares students away. And it's not that, like, you want to be a teacher, this is great. If you're unsure if I'm really going to be a teacher, you kind of stay away from taking on something that would turn into loans. So I think that's the challenge. And that's why I like where this is moved to, which is really focusing on juniors and seniors. Those are people who are probably more committed than freshmen and sophomores. So we'll see what happens this year.
And to add to Dr. Gentile's comment, so we have had loan forgiveness programs in the past where freshmen and sophomores were eligible. And when we see that, they're not sure if they want to be a teacher or whatever the program is. And so then that turns into a loan that accrues interest over a significant period of time and is even more difficult for them to repay if they choose not to go into that field. So definitely junior, senior, post-baccalaureate students should be the minimum starting point for these types of programs.
Any questions? I'll second the motion.
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman,
Aye.
Commissioner Deeter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock, Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Rader,
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood.
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 11 ayes.
Excellent, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners.
Let's just get the scholarship numbers out.
On you, Tim.
Happy to help out however we can, Tim. So next up, we have our Tennessee Promise County assignments. Mr. Snyder, Senior Director of Tennessee Promise, will provide us an overview. Mr. Snyder, you're recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Dr. Gentile. Before you this morning is information on the transition of Tennessee Promise Partnering Organization assignments in 7 counties for administration of Tennessee Promise Scholarship Program components. So these changes will take effect for the 25-26 academic year for all new program participants. So to be clear, this won't impact current students enrolled in these counties to ensure the smoothest transition for all students participating in the program. This expansion will allow the Ayers Foundation to continue to focus their service in the distressed counties in Tennessee. So they're by assuming the responsibility in these counties. So the following counties would transition from Tennessee Achieves to the Ayers Foundation Trust: Clay, Hancock, Hardeman, Johnson, Lake, Van Buren, and White. This would bring the totals in across the state of Tennessee. The Ayers Foundation would have 28 counties served, and Tennessee Achieves would be in 67 counties. So Tennessee Code annotated 494708 authorizes THEC to partner with college access nonprofits. Currently, we partner with Tennessee Achieves and the Ayers Foundation Trust in administration of the Tennessee Promise Scholarship Program. So their primary responsibilities are to provide mentoring services to program participants and to manage the community service component of the program. Additionally, Tennessee Achieves is responsible for a college coaching model and the administration of completion grants. The Ayers Foundation was also involved in the completion grants, but the funding for their portion expired at the end of the 24-25 academic year. So with that, I recommend passage and I stand ready for any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Ragsdale?
Just a comment. First, I think we're exceedingly fortunate in Tennessee to have the Ayers Foundation and Tennessee Achieves. And I know that Graham Thomas with Tennessee Achieves is here today with us. So thank you, Mr. Thomas, for being here. I serve on the board of Tennessee Achieves, and at the advice of council, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote, although I will say the pay at Tennessee Achieves is pretty paltry, about like the pay it is on this board. So, but I will, but indeed recuse myself.
you for
But I
your
wanted
service.
everyone to know the reason for that.
Thank you for your service either way, either location. I have a couple questions. Are there any questions that? No. How is it that, I mean, you have the best, I think, in Tennessee Achieves and AIRS to support all these communities. There's a lot of other organizations across these counties. How are they engaged or not engaged in this process? How do you choose who is administering it, I guess?
So all of our other college access partners across the state are indirectly involved in the administration of the program because we have a FAFSA component. We have the application process component. And so like, for example, Niswonger Foundation, PEF, Public Education Foundation in Chattanooga, they're involved. Those two specifically are involved on our Tennessee Promise Special Advisory Committee. So we meet twice a year to discuss evolving issues with the program, to discuss potential changes to the program. For example, we just modified our community service process. So that was something that was discussed with the Tennessee Promise Special Advisory Committee. And so that's how we involve our other organizations. From the selection process, we truly defer that to our counties. So when the program was founded in 2014, that was something that was presented to each county executive as a decision for them. And at that time, we had the Southwest Tennessee Development District was an additional partner organization. So the three of them were serving the 95 counties across the state. So.
Where does Advise TN step into any of this?
Sure. So Advise TN truly, again, they just serve in a support role in the high schools where they're assigned.
So these are like the lead, there's obviously a broader partnership into these communities, but these are the lead people. So if you've got questions about a specific county, you call either the AIRS or Tennessee Achieves.
Yes.
to
So
address the situation.
I would be the liaison for them with the students, with the high schools, with our institutional partners. Absolutely.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions, comments? All right, I will move to approve. Looking for a second.
Second.
Madam Secretary?
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman, Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock, Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryder,
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Secretary Hargit, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 10 ayes and 2 abstentions.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have other business. Dr. Gentile waved his hand.
I'll be very brief. I want to recognize President Licari from Austin P State who joined us. Good to see you, sir. Real quick announcement. We've had in front of us people who dedicated their life and career to the state. I want to recognize 4 of those real quick who are retiring from us. Robert Biggers is someone you've not had in front of you before. He's from our THEC side, Senior Director of all lottery scholarships. He'll be retiring later this year. Carolyn Qualls, if there's an institution that we are authorizing through DPSA, she's got her fingerprints all over that. Stephanie Strong, our finance director, makes it sure that we are meeting our needs as an agency with our $600 million budget. So thank you to her. And then finally, Patty Miller. She's a familiar face in front of you, our chief architect. When Focus occurred and we had 8 governing boards become, we got her from MTSU and she did stellar work there and has been of great service to the state. We're going to miss her. We're going to miss all 4 of them. And I just want to give them a second and thank them. Thank you, Patty.
Any other business from the commission? Okay. Hearing none, we stand adjourned.